Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, welcome to Unity Orlando. Our opening statement this morning is God is my help in every need, and I am provided for abundantly. Let's all affirm that together. God is my help in every need, and I am provided for abundantly. All right, let's all close our eyes, take a nice deep breath in. Let's affirm that together in the silence. And so it is. And now, if you'd like to join us, please stand and we'll sing our joy song this morning. It is called From My Heart, From My Soul. I let go of the struggle, I release and I let go, lift away all the sorrow, all the pain in my soul. I let God's power use me, I release all control, feel God's strength coming through me, open heart, I am whole. I let go of the struggle, I release and I let go, lift away all the sorrow, all the pain in my soul. I let God's power use me, I release all control, feel God's strength coming through me, open heart, I am whole. I release, I let go from my heart, from my soul. I release, I let go from my heart, from my soul. I let go of the struggle, I release and I let go, lift away all the sorrow, all the pain in my soul. I let God's power use me, I release all control, feel God's strength coming through me, open heart, I am whole. I release, I let go from my heart, from my soul. I release, I let go from my heart, from my soul. I let go. Very nice. You may be seated. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity Orlando. My name is Paul Kenny. I'll be your platform person today. Any visitors here for the first time? Okay, all family. Anybody new from home, welcome. For those of you at home, you can get basically the information in the bulletin by going to unityorlando.org, clicking services, and then taking the lesson notes. And if you leave church and forgot your bulletin, when you get home, you can do the same. Our chaplains pray every evening at 8 p.m. and invite you to join them from wherever you are. And chaplains are available to pray with you after service. The women's group is hosting a pancake breakfast next Sunday in honor of Father's Day. Invite your friends and family to enjoy a breakfast feast, and I think everybody gets to eat,
Yes.
whether you're a dad or not.
No, you don't have to watch the menu.
Okay. Reverend Bob's lesson this morning is willing to surrender, but before I turn it back over to Brian, Susan Francis told me I have to tell a little story. So this is a true story, a Navy flying story from the early 1980s. We were on deployment We left Norfolk, Virginia, ended up in San Francisco, but we went the long way around. It took us 8 months, but we were in the Mediterranean Sea and worked something out with Morocco to run a practice mission into their country. And one of the things we were all wondering about is how low do we get to fly? Because we always like to fly low and fast. And, okay, 500 feet, well, that's actually pretty high. Okay, 200 feet. Well, the word got out a couple days before that Morocco didn't care. You could fly as low as you wanted. So that's what we did. And we're heading up this valley. There's a whole bunch of airplanes, and we're buzzing over towns and buildings. And, I felt kind of bad making all that noise for those people. So there was a hillside, so I stepped up on the hillside a little bit, doing about 500 miles an hour, just skimming the treetops. And I noticed a cut in the trees coming up from left to right. And just as we got to the edge of it, I could see it was a dirt road. And on the dirt road was a man with a rope. And at the other end of the rope was a donkey. And I knew his day was about to go bad. Because the noise of a jet like that, skimming the treetops at 500 miles an hour, you can't hear it coming until it's right on you, and then it's just so loud. So he went down the right side of the airplane, and my navigator's right over here next to me, and he looks out the window and he goes, "Man, that donkey is really kicking." So my apologies to the man and the donkey. Over to Brian and the music team.
That's quite a story. So last week I wrote 2 new songs. This week you're gonna think I wrote a new song, but it's actually an old song that I hardly ever played. So it's called Extraordinary One.
Feeling like I'm safe inside, somewhere down deep inside, feeding on my peace of mind, some sweet surrender, being round my wisdom kind. I feel this world inside ties to a holy light that lights my way. The wisdom kind, I feel this world inside ties to a holy light, some sweet surrender, feeling like I'm safe inside, somewhere down deep inside, feeding on my peace of mind that lights my way. Let love grow extraordinary one, rain down on my field of light, blessing everyone. Let love grow extraordinary one, rain down on my field of light, blessing all the world.
blessing everyone. Let love grow extraordinary one. Rain down on my world of light, blessing all the world. Let love grow extraordinary one. Rain down on my field of light, blessing everyone. Let love grow extraordinary one. Rain down on my world of light, blessing all the world.
Ah, that was wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad you made the old new. All of you are wonderful. Let's see. We have Carol, Carolyn, Tinker, John, Brian, and the one who's exiting right there. She's new, right? Stephanie Slagle is sitting in with the band today. She recently graduated from UCF as a vocal performance major and has been accepted into the Disney College program. So basically, we're getting her while we still can. Enjoying summer? It does seem to be here. You know, Patty and I were just discussing it. Sometimes it seems like life is flying by. And sometimes it seems like it's been forever and it's only been a short time. I guess time is just getting to where it's a little variable. Glad to be with you, all of you who are home. Thank you for being here. And thank each of you who came out for being here in person. Today we're going to talk about willing to surrender. You know, that word surrender, it's got a lot of negative connotations in this day in which the theme of the adventure is never surrender. And Galaxy Quest, never surrender, never give up. Well, maybe Galaxy Quest is not a good example, since that was a spoof. But you need to understand, those surrendering, I'll often say, never surrender to any human being, but always surrender to God. Surrender to God is a powerful spiritual experience. We think of surrender as giving up power, but it's actually the way you find it. Now, surrender takes place on a whole bunch of different levels. A couple of weeks ago, I gave a talk on Give It to God, which is the idea that we surrender our problems and our prayers to God when we're getting nowhere. I'm not seeming to make any progress. So consequently, it's time to realize I should be giving it to God. And why would you give it to God? Matthew 19:26. Jesus looked at them. You got to understand, he just said something about getting into the kingdom of heaven that they saw was overwhelming. How can anybody do this? And his response was, Jesus looked at them and said, "For men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." That's why surrendering to God is actually being willing to enter into power. Anyone in AA will talk about the power of surrendering. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous was based on the idea that an alcoholic is often overwhelmed and cannot seem to personally handle getting out of their addiction. But from the moment they surrender to a higher power, surrender their life to a higher power, things start to move. And suddenly they're able to succeed in getting over their alcoholism or whatever else it is that they're addicted to. I first experienced making my peace with the word surrender in the 4T program. See, I'd never been an AA person. I'd never been addicted to drugs or whatever. And so consequently, here we started the 4T Prosperity Program, and an aspect of his program, since Stretton was an AA person, an aspect of his program was to integrate the 12 steps into his program, into his prosperity program. He said, what we are dealing with is the addiction to poverty thinking, which is very valid, quite frankly. And so they're talking about surrendering, and I'm like, you know, that word, it grates on me. And yet the further I went into this program, the more I thought, you know, that word is actually perfect. Because it's talking about something that I've been doing all along. I just never put this word on it, and this word describes it best of any other word I can think of. Because you truly are letting go, surrendering. But you're surrendering to a higher power. That a higher power can move through you. Surrendering to God is the doorway to power. And it goes like this. The more you can surrender to God, the more power flows through you. Haven't you often heard people say, give me all the power in the world and I'll just get rid of all the bad people and we'd have a much better world? I don't know that I want to depend upon that person's opinion of who the bad people are. I'm liable to fall in there. Everyone's got a different version, right? You don't want to depend upon personal opinion on these things. So, does God give us all the power in the world so we can annihilate half the population? Or maybe 98% of the population? And just stick with those who agree with me until they don't? Under no conditions. That's not how it works. If you want divine power to flow through you, you have to have surrendered to God. And the more complete that surrender is, the more you can be trusted to be a channel of divine power. And when you're a channel of divine power, amazing things happen through you that you never did, but they happen through you. If you're going to pursue the path of power, you will find there are two levels. One is personal power, and the other is divine power. Now, I speak as someone who started traveling in my pre-teens and teens. I started working with mind power. You know, I decided this body is not 6'6" and 200 pounds. It's not a major Hulk. So I thought, well, if I'm going to make an impression on the world, I'm going to dominate the world with my mind. And I studied all kinds of stuff. I did all kinds of ESP experiments. I learned to use my will behind thoughts in order to put those thoughts in other people's minds when we were trying to do ESP back and forth. I learned to use my will through my eyes to just use this tremendous power of will. I remember in my early days in the ministry in Miami, there was a young man would come in specifically to sit across from me and joust. You know, later he confessed, I come to see you because you're the only one I cannot dominate. He could usually dominate with energy coming out of his eyes. He said, instead, you just meet me right back. I was always strong. My will is what I learned to make things spiritually happen in my life. And that first stage of spiritual understanding is when you're trying to pray and make things happen. And you need to put yourself behind the positive things you want to happen in your life. I learned how to do that. But I was traveling the path of power. And when you travel the path of power, Spirit eventually teaches you a lesson. You know, the important thing about personal power is he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. You'll always find someone who can dominate you, or your very attempt at dominance will become your enemy and create pain in your life. So let's say that over a period of time, in my latter teens, maybe even into my early 20s, but probably mostly latter teens, I learned that I do not use power. Power, divine power, uses me. When we first start, we think we're going to use God to get what we want. And in the first stage, you actually do. You pray, you demonstrate. But that's the very first stage. You then have to learn, I don't use spiritual power. Spiritual power uses me. And the more you know this, the more power flows through you. In Luke 22:42 through 43, Jesus prayed, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. And there appeared unto him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. That is what the path of power in the end is all about. Thy will be done. Through me, right? Total surrender to a higher power is what took place in that statement. And Jesus prayed, total surrender to God, thy will be done. And the celestial realms responded. And he was strengthened. The true path of power is not personal power at all. The true path of power is to surrender your will to divine will. And when you truly accomplish that task, And it sounds simple and easy, and people think they do it in a moment, and it takes much more. But when you truly surrender your will to divine will, you become the channel of divine power. And our prayer, we're in that space, is thy will be done through me. Thy will be done through me. Now, I'm going to back off and say there are 3 surrenders. Each of them is a doorway into a level of power, divine power in your life. But there are 3 surrenders you will make on the path to soul awakening. And the first surrender, well, that's actually the one we've talked about, is surrender your will to God in regard to your challenges and your life desires. This is let go and let God with your problems and with your desires, your prayers. A couple of weeks ago, I gave a whole talk on this level and this level alone. AA uses this level. Surrender your addiction to God. Whether that addiction is alcohol, drugs, codependence on others, or poverty. And we can throw in a whole bunch of other things, right? The thing that you cannot handle, surrender it to God. Remember, for men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. So when it seems impossible, there is an obvious step to take here. Give it to God. In this stage, you learn to surrender your will. You learn not to force things or demand things. You learn to accept what Spirit brings you. And basically the theme of this level is all I want is what God wants for me. Because if you're like me at all, you learn that every time I take it back and try to use my will, I cause myself extreme pain. Nothing that I force through, and I am capable of forcing things through. Nothing that I force through ever really works. It always goes south on me. And so you learn to give your will to God. I only want what God wants for me. Now, you say, so from here on I'll never use my will again. And I'm saying, that isn't true at all. Will is one of your spiritual powers. You just have to tame it. It's like a horse has to be tamed to be ridden. So does your will. And later on, you'll learn to take up your will again. But it will always be in service to divine will. I'll use my will in conjunction with what it appears divine will is trying to do in my life. I'll play my part. You have an energy to contribute. And you learn to put it back in. It's a journey, learning to surrender your will to God. You know, it doesn't happen in one moment. It happens in thousands. But when you do learn to surrender your will to God, real power moves and things work out. And you often discover God has a better idea. It doesn't go where you thought you wanted to take it. But where it does go, offers you more blessings than you realized. So, the first level is to surrender our challenges, our prayers, our desires, that which we want to demonstrate in our life. Every time we come up against something where we spiritually need to create a demonstration, we give it to God. Say, God, I need some help here. It's in your hands. I'll accept whatever you do. That's a very big step spiritually. But it certainly isn't the biggest. It's the first of three. The second one, the second surrender, is when you declare, my whole life belongs to God. I am here only to serve God. For me, during that period, I had to keep reminding myself, my life isn't my own. It belongs to God. I don't have the right to run my life wherever I want. If I do, I'm going counter to my purpose in coming into this world. My entire life belongs to God. Without God, I wouldn't have it. It just wouldn't be here. So my entire life belongs to God. You know, this is a big spiritual experience for many people. Many people will have that say, oh, wow, you know, I had this spiritual experience and I dedicated my whole life to God. And what they do not realize is that isn't the end. That's just a beginning. That's the cover charge to get you into the room. You haven't proved anything yet. You're going to have to do some serious exploration of whether you truly have dedicated your life to God or not. I remember in my early 20s, I was a minister in my early 20s, and one of my YOUers, Youth of Unity, high school age kids, you know, she was an upper teen, and one day she said to me, have you ever had that experience? That one experience, that one time when you dedicated your whole life to God in that one moment. And I thought about it. And for a moment, I felt a little inferior. I thought, you know, I never had one big moment. She said, I did, and it was phenomenal. And I knew that my whole life was dedicated to serving God, to letting God move through me. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, actually, I'm there. But I didn't have one moment. I had 1,000 little steps that took me there. But I've often heard of the people who had that one moment. What is concerning is that so many of them, after they've had that one moment, they slip backwards. They paid the cover charge and then left the room. Staying in the room takes some real energy. It takes some real surrender. It has to be an active thing that's going on almost every day of your life. I surrender to God. Because once you've had that first moment when you realize my life belongs to God, now there's a testing phase. I'm not sure God calls it that. I did. Where you go through everything that's happening, and this is a whole level of spiritual learning. My life belongs to God. It's not a momentary realization. The momentary realization gets you into the room. But once you're in there, you are proving over and over to yourself that you have truly given your life to God. God, you know your life is not yours. It belongs to God. Your personal desires take a back seat to purpose, and you don't always get what you want. And in the beginning, when this starts to happen, and you realize something's going down again you don't like, and you're supposed to accept it? And I know my response was, and this is the immature state when you first start realizing my life belongs to God, is, okay, God, it's your life. Mess it up if you want to. Mess it up if you want to, because you sure seem to be messing it up right now. It's your life. But at least we're still on it's your life. I'm just being rebellious. And eventually the rebellion fades. And you learn to follow God's leading implicitly. Absolutely. Wherever God takes me, I will go. And over a period of time, you will discover how committed you are to serving God. Have you truly made the surrender, or was it mainly words, or a momentary flash of feeling? Because this has to be a deep and absolute commitment. And you discover the more you are committed to serving God in everything you do, now we get the positive side of things. The more power is entrusted to you. And the more divine power does amazing things through you. The result is, if you truly prove yourself worthy by proving you are committed to serving God wherever you are, whatever you do, I know that I'm serving God. When you do that, you become what I call the messenger of God. Because power does move through you. You don't do anything. You know, when I started, I was like, I will do this, and the world will change, and I'll do that, and I'll bend this to my will, and everything will happen. Instead, you walk through and you do nothing. Because in the end, you realize this outer part of me, it just doesn't matter that much. But there is something amazing within me that can move through me and actually work miracles. And so it is that you don't do anything, but the power of God moves through you, and amazing things happen wherever you are after you've proven yourself fully committed to serving divine will. Now, you say, oh, amazing things are happening all around me. Well, you can certainly get proud of that, and if you do, you're going to lose it. This is not an ego state, because you know you had nothing to do with it. I didn't do anything, but a miracle happened while I was there. You're just in awe at what transpires around you. You take no credit because you know you're just a catalyst. You aren't part of the actual chemical reaction. It's just that that reaction happens because you are present, because you're a channel and power flows through you. So the more you turn away from ego pride as you begin to watch amazing things happen around you, or say, it ain't me. It's something that flows through me. It is a higher power. The more you turn away from ego and personal pride, the more power flows through you. And you simply watch and thrill at the power of God in action. It is such an amazing high just to watch divine power move. Not at your command. That wouldn't be divine power, would it? To just watch. I am dedicated to God. Therefore, wherever I go, divine power moves. You don't choose what will happen. Remember, you don't have control. You don't choose what will happen in a situation. God does. Now, sometimes your attention on something points out a need, and God moves. Just, wow, I saw that there was a need here, and suddenly, boom, things are happening. And sometimes not. And you don't know why the difference. God does, but you don't. In fact, as the catalyst, you don't even realize, often, you don't even realize that God moved through you until after the fact. You go, oh my God, something happened. That's amazing. Were you to try to take credit, you would fall right down. You'd fall back heavily. But by then, you've probably been trained. Don't take credit. It'll get you in trouble. So let's talk about the third surrender. People say, I surrendered my entire life to God. What do I have left to surrender? The third surrender is surrender yourself. That is your identity. This outer self is not who I really am. Now we're starting to get towards soul awakening. This isn't who I am. This human self. I am an eternal soul, a child of God, a being of light. If you thought dedicating your whole life took some effort, wait till you try to give up who you think you are. These egos do not give up easily. I'm only human. You're going to have to know that is a falsehood. You're not only human. You have majesty inside of you. That the human being is amazingly humbled before. When I came face to face with what was inside of me, it was devastating. Because the part of me that had always thought it was so important, that always thought it was doing great things, suddenly realized it was nothing compared to what was inside of me. This outer self that struggles so hard, it's not nearly as important as you think it is. It's the costume, the clothing you wear as you walk through this life. It isn't who you are. And we are going to have to surrender our belief that the clothes are who we are if we're going to reach soul awakening. So this one's the final one. 1 John 4:4, you are of God. He who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. Or 1 Thessalonians 5:5, you are all the children of light. You're a being of light. not a being of human cells in a body. You're a being of light inside a body, yes, temporarily. Or John 8:12, when Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall find for himself the light of life. That was the whole goal of following Jesus. To find that light of life at the center of your being. To discover that your real identity is an eternal soul, an eternal being of light, not this body that's going to fade away. So, surrendering self comes in two stages. Surrendering the lesser and embracing the greater. So that first step is surrender your commitment to the ego self. We don't even realize how committed we are to this human ego self. It's really hard to get beyond it. I spent 5 years. I called it a desert, trying to get beyond the ego self, to find what was there. I could sense it, I could feel it, but to truly move identity into the soul. Because in the end, that's what Jesus was teaching. And that's what he means why you'll never see death. If you move into your soul, and that's where your identity is, you walk right into the next realm. There's no transition. Because your soul never dies. So here we go. The first step is to surrender your commitment to ego self. What do you got to give up? What have you got to surrender and realize don't really matter? You may still have them, but you need to not be committed to them. Your opinions. Your ego desires. You say, I can't have anything? No, I desire what is good for the whole, and sometimes good for the whole is you doing really well. And sometimes you're going to let someone else take the lead. But in either case, your desire is for the good of the whole. And you have to surrender that belief that you know who you are. You have to be able to, you have to begin to question and say, I am not who I have thought myself to be. Only then can you embrace a higher version of self. You got to let go of what you've been clinging to and saying, that's me. Ever seen somebody who says, well, I have a short fuse, that's just me, put up with it. That just means they're lazy and they don't want to change. That's all that means. Because it's not just them. And these personalities are not set in stone. We've changed them all of our lives. Go back 5 years at a time and you'll find you were a very different person. Who you are has always been evolving. It's always been in motion. So, should it really be that hard to say, I'm not who I thought I was? You might want to affirm, I'm a soul, an eternal spiritual being with amnesia. At the moment, I don't remember I'm a spiritual being. But that's what I really am. And your prayer might be, Holy Spirit, change me at depth to be more soul and less personality. We are 99 and 44/100%. You have to be really old to understand where that came from. That was the purity of ivory soap. Yes, right. Okay, we are 99 and 44/100% committed to being human. If you can move that little extra bit is soul in our awareness. Nobody has a baby soul. No one has a little soul. Your soul is this amazing spiritual being. We have little awareness of it, baby awareness of it, that's for sure. But were you able to move that awareness just a little tiny bit? Move your identity. What you identify with. Just a little bit. It has an amazing impact on your outer life. It changes everything. And for the better. So the second step, if you can loosen your attachment to your humanness just a little, it's time to commit, attach to your soul and realize that's who I am. And that's all that matters. That second step is I am not who I have thought myself to be. I am an eternal being of light with amnesia trying to wake up. First you stir as a soul awakening. And eventually you begin to remember who you really are underneath it all. Now, to get there, you're going to start by affirming, I am not this human self. I am so much more. Over and over. I am not this human self. I am so much more. I'm a being of light. I'm a being of light. Indestructible light. I'm a being of light, temporarily in this physical body and temporarily in this physical life, with the emphasis on temporarily. This 100 years within the span of eternity is the blink of an eye. Move on to embrace your inner majesty, the majesty within, as your real identity. Believe me, that which you find within you is pure majesty. Souls don't get sick. Souls don't get weak. Souls don't get damaged. No matter what their personal selves do, the soul doesn't get damaged. It's an eternal child of God, and you always will be, no matter what you did with this life. You're still underneath it all a soul. As you embrace that majesty within, you'll begin to know this outer self is nothing. It doesn't really matter. I play the game, but I don't need to win. I'm going to win sometimes, but I don't need to. I remember my soul, and I can feel its presence within me. That might become your affirmation. I remember my soul, and I can feel its presence within me. I long, put desire behind it, I long to be more soul and a little less personality. To move that bar just a little bit. And as an exercise, meditate on glowing in light. Be an egg of light that extends beyond your body. I can tell you, if you work with this long enough, you start by imaging a light at the center of your being, expanding out through you, and then out beyond you a little ways, and then a little further, and then maybe 3 foot in all directions. And you realize, this is who I am. And it starts as an image you will hold. But as you hold that image long enough, you pass over a threshold. And there is a point at which you are no longer just imaging yourself as a being of light, which is how you start. But you are glowing in light. You aren't trying, you aren't doing, you are glowing in light. And when you do that, when you finally get there, it's an amazingly powerful experience. It's not that the light alone seems to show all that power, as it is that the next day, if you've been meditating at night, I know I got up the next day and I was amazed how everything went smoothly. Everything was harmonious. I got things done in half the time. Everything was like, once you know you're a being of light, your outer world changes phenomenally for the better. That surrender begins to release the power of your soul. That's big stuff. So, let's sum it up together. Say this week, let's work at whatever level of surrender to God you're ready for. That first level, let go and let God, put your issues in God's hands and declare, God, thy will be done in my life. We can all do that at least. Number 2, maybe you're ready to step up to the plate and declare something. You say, well, I already have. Yeah, you can never declare it enough. My life belongs to God. I commit my whole life to serving God. And you're going to repeat, God, thy will be done, over and over and over until it's a part of you. Or maybe the third one, that final surrender. I am not this human self. I'm an eternal being of light, a child of God. And you'll declare, I am willing to become less so that my soul can become more. Or as I said a moment ago, maybe you celebrate this one by meditating on yourself as a glowing being of light until that becomes real for you. That's what I am. Final statement, the more you surrender to God, the more you realize it is not I, but the Spirit within me that does its work through me. And the more you can see God moving through you and doing its work, then your life takes on a real sense of purpose. For you're here to allow God to move through you wherever you go. And you realize essentially, I am in this world, but I am not of it. Joining the Master in that realization, who declared it for each one of his disciples. They are in this world, but they are not of it. Let's close our eyes. We take a deep breath and sigh it out. We move into our hearts. The heart is the altar. It is here that I meet God within. So here within, feel God's presence within you and all around you. And as you feel yourself immersed in that presence, feel your own total surrender to God, to the presence. And put God in charge of everything in your life. Realize without this presence that is right there within you, you wouldn't even be alive. So in the end, my whole life belongs to God. And I'm in this life only to serve God. Your ego may think otherwise, but your soul thrills at this statement. So in the end, now surrender to the divine power that flows through you. To be a channel, a catalyst for good wherever you are, even though you may not do it or feel like you have anything to do with it. It is not I, but the Spirit within me that does its work through me. God, thy will be done through me. And know deep in your being that the power of God moves through you for the good of the whole. Miracles happen through me, not because I deserve them, but simply because I have surrendered. And God moves now through me. Feel that deep yearning to know fully your soul, the part of you that is eternal and will not fade away. I want to be a little less this personal self and a little more soul. So realize I am a child of God, an eternal being of light, temporarily in this human body, temporarily living this human life. And if you are that child of God, if you are that eternal being of light, embrace your inner majesty. For there is majesty within you that leaves you, the outer being, awestruck An image that majesty is the light of life, shining from your soul throughout your body, throughout your mind, throughout your heart. You're an egg of light. You are a being of light. And for a moment, realize, I am soul. That's who I am. I am soul. And I am in this world, but I am not of it. Father, give each of us the strength to awaken to whatever level we can handle of the glory, the majesty that is within us, in our soul. Thank you, God. Amen. And I'm going to invite the usher to come forward so we can prepare for our offering. For you who are at home, your support is exceedingly important to us. It's a great deal of what keeps us going. So the way you give your offering, if you're new and you don't know this yet, where is it? You go to the home page of the website following the service. You hit the Donate Now button, and you can either use credit card or PayPal. You can pull our address off of the website and send us a check. Or if it's easier for you, you can call the office and arrange for regular offerings. Your support of us, as I said, we are exceedingly grateful for. It's what keeps us going. Now, we who are here, well, we're going to take that offering out and hold it in our hands. And let's affirm together, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. Thank you, God. Amen. It's all yours.
When we breathe, it sounds like a whispering wind, and the day begins to shine. I can see it looks like heaven's above, but it's in our hearts full of love. We can find our way through the beauty of the day if we let love pave the way. We can make love grow like a pretty flower, shows the beauty of a beautiful day. I can hear the silence of a morning to come. Before the day's begun, I can feel the dew dropping off of a song. Hear a new song before it's begun. We can find our way through the beauty of the day if we let love pave the way. We can make love grow like a pretty flower, shows the beauty of a beautiful day. such a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day.
And it is a beautiful day. Thank you all for making it so. I always like it that they play after I talk and they send you out feeling good, right? Where are we? We are going to say whether you're at home watching or here in person. Thank you for being Unity Orlando. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being my spiritual family. I do mean that. I say it every week, but I mean it every week. Next Sunday, I will be speaking on Love What You Got. Love what you got. It'll be Father's Day. So bring Dad, if he'll put up with it. We're going to honor our fathers next week. Let's all rise and close our service with prayer protection together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. God bless you all.